Hi everyone, my name's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today I am going to do my June wrap-up. June was kind of a slower month reading-wise. I was incredibly busy at work, and work is where I do a lot of my reading because I listen to audiobooks while I work. So it was just kind of a slower month in general, and then physical books, it was also pretty slow because I read a book that took me a very long time to finish, which I will get into shortly. And I am a stickler when I'm reading. I try to only read one physical book and one audiobook at a time. So this one book was taking me a long time, so it was the only physical book I was reading. But it was not bad, but we'll get into that. Anyway, so it was kind of a mixture of all sorts of different genres, kind of random books kind of thrown in, but overall, I think it was a pretty good month. There were no books I disliked. It was all successful stories. So let's get into it. First up, I have All the Feels by Olivia Dade. This is the second book in a romance series. The first one was Spoiler Alert. This one was a really cute addition. It follows the male main character's best friend from the first book. So he's a famous actor in this really popular TV show, and he gets into like a scrape where he like gets in a fight at a bar or something, and everyone thinks he's kind of a loose cannon. So he's assigned a handler, essentially, who has to follow him around, be with him all the time, make sure he doesn't get into any more trouble as this new season premieres, I think. And so that's kind of the setup for the story, and of course there's a romance that follows. I thought it was really cute. I thought a lot of the messages that were put across were really lovely, and I just think that Olivia Dade is a really great author. All of her female main characters, or at least for this series, I haven't read anything else by her, but for this series, both of the female main characters are plus size, and so I think that that representation is really nice. She also has some main characters with different mental health issues that they are addressing throughout the story, and overall I just think that she's a great author, and I recommend it. They're fun, easy reads. I really liked this story. So next up, coming in as the best book of the month, is Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. No shock. I've talked about this book in a few other videos. This book is a masterpiece. This series is a masterpiece. I am obsessed. Tamsin Muir is a fantastic author. She's done something here that I've never seen before done successfully. I did a video where I read 1-star reviews of my favorite books, which was hysterical. I'll link it above. But this one, the review I read said, like, this book is for people that like to feel stupid while reading. And it cracked me up because, like, maybe. Because both books are very confusing, especially in your first read through. It is so confusing what's going on. But her writing is so good, and the banter is so good, the characters are so great, and the world is just so atmospheric that it honestly doesn't detract from the story in any way. If anything, it adds to it. So this book, I started tabbing really late in the book because that's when you start to find out what's going on. You have no idea what's going on, but Harrow also doesn't know what's going on. So you're kind of like figuring it out with her, and I loved it. I've seen a few people starting to get Nona the Ninth arcs, and it's killing me. I emailed the publisher, and they were like, oh, we're holding these pretty close to our chest. And I was like, I want one so bad. This book is incredible. I'm so excited for Nona the Ninth. If you have not read this series, I can concede that they're not for everyone. I can see why some people wouldn't like it, but I highly recommend them. I think they're incredible, and it's something different in fantasy. It's like sci-fi fantasy because it's in space, but it's got necromancers, so it's like sci fantasy, but it is something I have not seen done in fiction. It is so unique. It is so good. So I highly recommend this series for anyone looking for just a really fun, funny, dark story. Next up, I have 1,000 Steps Into Night by Tracy Chee. I buddy read this with Kushi Kishore, whose channel I will link down below, and we had a blast. This is our first buddy read together. We're currently reading another book right now, but this one was so fun to read with her. We would get on calls and chat about it and just stay on the phone for like 2 hours. It was very fun, and the book was also really good. So this book is kind of like a Japanese folklore retelling from what I understand. I don't know the original story, but it follows this young girl who lives in a small town and is feeling a lot of the oppression that women face. She's feeling very stuck in life. And one night she goes to a vendor to pick up some more teacups for her and her father, and encounters a demon on the road who basically infects her with also like demonhood, I guess. Like, she starts to slowly turn blue, and once she turns all the way blue, she will become a demon. So she is going out on a quest to try to get this reversed, to try to not become a demon. She's driven out of her town, and so she goes and she meets this bird man named Geiki, and they form this beautiful friendship, and together they try to get this demon out of her. And it's just a really beautiful story about being a woman in society, specifically Japanese society. It's a really, really lovely story. There's a lot of themes of like friendship, and I liked that there was never any romances involved because it kept it all very wholesome. But it was also a really dark story. There's violence, there's demons, like there's like it takes a turn at one point, like probably 20 or 30% in, that I was not expecting, because the main character is pretty young, and so the book was reading very young, very naive. But then there's like this really dark turn, and I thought it really gave the whole book kind of higher stakes, which is a lot of my criticisms of books a lot of the time are that stakes don't feel high enough. And this book really landed that. The stakes did feel high. I wouldn't say this is like the greatest book I've ever read, but I did have a really good time reading it. It was an easy read. It was an emotional read. It was a cute read. So definitely recommend if you're looking for something along those lines. I really enjoyed it. Next up, I have Before They Are Hanged by Joe Abercrombie. This is the second book in the First Law trilogy. So I've talked about the first book, I think last month I read it. And I was not immediately in love with it like everyone else. I kind of got like I got why everyone was liking it, but to me, the book, you're kind of just like sat into the story. You're like, you're put right in the middle of the story without any context for what happened previously or who these characters are. And the plot is slow. There's not a whole lot of plot going on in the first book. So a lot of it is just you being with these characters. But without any context, I just didn't know why I cared. Like, I was like, why am I supposed to care about these people? I don't know who they are. And I felt that way for most of the book. It was towards the end when I kind of started to feel like part of the story. So I think I gave that one 3 stars. It was definitely, the writing is incredible. Like, the world is great. I just didn't feel connected. And this book kind of helped connect me with this characters more. This book, since we already know the world a little bit, we know the characters, I really felt like I actually started to connect, and I really liked it. I thought that the battle scenes felt very realistic. Being a grimdark book, there were always stakes. I always felt like the stakes were high. Everything was very intense. While it's grimdark and there's not a lot of happiness that goes around, there's still a lot of funniness. So there's like jokes and stuff throughout that kind of keep it light enough to where you're not just like wallowing. I thought that the characters were really great. I think that General West is great. Glocta's great. There's Logan. They're all really, really fun characters to read about. I'm excited to read the third one because I've heard it's the best of the 3. And I'm hoping that, I gave this one 4 stars, so I'm hoping that the next one will be 5 stars. I'm hoping that they just progressively get better. I've also been known to love ends of series. I always, if it's done well, the ends of a series are always my favorite of the books. So I'm really hoping that that is the case with this series. I hope that the last one is very good. Next up, I read The 1619 Project by Nicole Hannah Jones. It's not really by Nicole Hannah Jones. Nicole Hannah Jones kind of created this project, and this book is a collection of essays by a bunch of different people, and it's a nonfiction book. I've talked about it in a few other videos. It is about how basically in 1619 was when the first ship of kidnapped people from Africa arrived on the shores of North America and were enslaved. And it just kind of talks about how from this point we've gotten to the point we're at now and what has happened in between. And how that one instance, that one point in history has led to all of these different discriminatory practices and different relations that go on within the US from that one point. And it was just such a well put together book. I listened to the audiobook, and each section is read by the person that wrote it, so that really added to the experience for me. A lot of the stuff I knew about because I've read a lot of books along this vein, but the way this one was all collected and the way it showed like point A to point B was really beautiful. And I highly recommend this book to anyone who is looking to get more info on American history. It is a very good book, a very great collection of essays. And since it's a collection of essays, you can kind of read it slower. You could like read an essay at a time, kind of digest it, which is very important when you're reading nonfiction books like this. Next up, complete 180 from that book, I read Wicked Beauty by Katie Robert. This is the third book in the Dark Olympus series. I think that's what it's called. The first one is Neon Gods, and then Electric Idol. I loved Neon Gods, that was the Hades and Persephone one, and then I hated the second one, Electric Idol, don't even remember who it was about, and then I really loved this one again, so thank goodness Katie Robert pulled through again. This is another romance novel, so if you're not into romance, do not think that this is a Greek mythology retelling. This is a very, very romance-heavy Greek mythology, it's based on Greek mythology, so don't go into it thinking this is a retelling. But this one follows Achilles, Patroclus, and Helen, and man, it was good. It was very steamy. Neon Gods was really steamy, and this one was also really steamy, in the best way. So if you are into romance books and you're into Greek mythology, this kind of pairs those in a lovely way. Definitely recommend this book if you're into that kind of stuff. And last but not least, the book that took over my month essentially is 7 Eves by Neil Stevenson. Neil Stevenson is a really prolific sci-fi author, and this is my first book by him. I've learned in my sci-fi journey that what I like in sci-fi is very space opera heavy, hard science sci-fi. I think that space science in general is just so interesting and so wild, and I love learning about space. I think it's so cool. So I told one of my family friends that I really like hard science space operas, and he recommended me this book, and I'm glad he did. I really enjoyed this book a lot. I had some qualms though. So the basis of the book is that the moon explodes, right? And however, all of the chunks of rock kind of stay in their general orbit around the Earth. They kind of like something causes it to explode, so it expands some, but the gravity of it kind of keeps it all loosely together. However, they start to slam into each other and kind of break apart. And scientists discover that within the next 2 years, well, in about 2 years, they will all start hitting each other at such a high rate that they're going to start raining down on Earth, and this will cause the Earth to overheat as they burn through the atmosphere and impact the Earth. Humanity has 2 years to get as many people into space as they can, and to figure out how to continue the human race until the Earth is habitable again. So the first section of the book is phenomenal. I flew through it. I thought it was so well written. The first section is those 2 years, and then it follows about 5 years after the hard rain, which is when the moon will descend onto Earth. So you get to like experience Earth being wiped out. It's very emotional for obvious reasons, and you get to see all of these people that have made it into space and see how they try to survive. And then there is a 5,000-year jump, and we see humanity trying to repopulate Earth. And I loved everything up to the time jump. I thought that it was so well written. It was very, very science heavy. If you are not into space science, do not read this book. I felt like the first 10 or 15% was more science than plot. So definitely don't read this book if you're not into space science. But I was obsessed. I mean, I love learning about space science. I've read nonfiction books about astrophysics. Like, I'm just a nerd about space science. So I was eating it up. And the characters are really great to learn about. They're living on the space station as well as some pods that have been sent up, and it's just really interesting to see the politics and everything involved in all of that. However, we do the 5,000 year jump, and I felt like the plot was kind of lost. For obvious reasons, humanity is very different 5,000 years later. Evolution has changed them, living in space has changed them, and their attempts to move back to Earth are working. Like, there's people that are already living there full time, not many though, and you kind of get to see the community, the society, the structure they've built in space to survive. They're living still around Earth. They haven't left Earth's orbit, but you kind of get to see like what they've built. I just felt like, I don't want to get into spoilers, so I'm going to keep this kind of loose, but I just felt like some of the biological things that happened with humans, I felt like was kind of weird. It was very racial based, not as in like how America views race, like not color of skin, but there are these distinct races of humans that are basically formed through evolution, and I thought that it was just strange. I don't know. I didn't dislike the book. I just felt like it went in a really weird direction that I didn't love. I thought the ending was fine. It ends kind of open. I don't know. So the end kind of tainted my overall reading experience with it. I haven't rated it yet. I haven't reviewed it yet because I'm trying to like think about it. The beginning though was amazing. Like, honestly, the book probably could have ended before the time jump and I would have loved it. So I definitely still recommend this book. I think that some people would probably like After the Time Jump. Just for me, it was kind of a strange, weird way it ended. But not a bad book by any means. So that is all the books I read in June. Again, kind of a slower month. I normally read about 8 or 9 books, and this month it was 7, I think. So not a bad month, not like only one less than normal, so it's really not that slow. Seven Eves just felt like it took up my entire month, so I felt like I was reading nothing all month because I was just reading that for so long. Anyway, overall, a very good reading month. I'm very much looking forward to July. I have some buddy reads lined up, some read-alongs, some great books in the works. Excited to continue this reading journey with you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Of course, your support means the world to me. If you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you're going to be reading in July, and let me know what you read in June, what your favorite book was in June. If you really like my content, go ahead and hit that notification bell to be notified every time I post a new video. And thank you guys for watching. Until next time.